For the past 26 years, William Lawrence has conducted annual workshops in one of his favorite places, Maine. This year, 2002, he has decided to tape the demonstrations from each of the 10 days of the workshop. Over the 26 years, much has changed in his thinking about painting. As there is much interest in the how and why of his evolution as a painter, he thought it would be of interest to share the journey. The early demonstrations deal with more representational images and the considerations inherent to making them. Sequentially, the paintings shown move toward images that are more personal and expressive in imagery, from painting subjects seen to painting subjects felt. This journey is not unique. It is generally the path that most painters follow. It is his hope that this series of demonstrations will help you better understand where you are, where you might be going, and to offer instruction that will be helpful to your personal journey. Enjoy.
We need to apply this stuff, and everything that you learn has to be applied to your intent. It's like someone said, and I thought it was perfect, there's no such thing as a bad idea. There's just not having one is the sin. No idea, then you immediately go into technique and design, and the painting becomes a mystery to you. You do it, and I say, well, what was your intention in the painting? If I walk up to you, and I see this too often, if I walk up to you and say, what is this painting about? And your reaction is the deer caught in the headlights, or you get angry, or you go into a long explanation of why you don't have one, then they're all mistakes. You understand? I mean, if I say, what is it about? And you go, well, I just got here and I just sat down and I'm trying to figure, that's not helping. I mean, don't get mad at me. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just trying to help. So in each instance, you want to say, what is my intent in the painting, and what are those elements which are best going to help me to get there? I do believe that if you know where you're trying to get, you can find a way to get there. But if you don't, you just wander aimlessly around hoping to find something nice. I mean, it really is the story of, where are you going? I don't know. Well, how are you going to know if you got there? That's a true story. I was sitting up here one year, and one Mainer came up to another and said, where are you going? He said, I don't know. He said, how are you going to know if you got there? That kind of thing. But if you decide, I am going to Portland, well, you can go, 95, US 1. I mean, there's lots of ways to get there. And they're all fine. You say, I'm going to take the scenic, complicated route, or I'm going to take the most expedient route. But knowing where your destination is going to make it easier and more fun, and you're going to learn something. If you just link out and say, I'm going to find someplace nice, good luck. So I thought that I would apply just one of those elements to this painting, and that is the element of contrasting intensity. Contrast of intensity. One of the things that I realize about Maine is that on days like today, when it's this kind of contrast, Maine has a certain starkness. It's contrast of value, of color, and of intensity. Things get very bright, things get whites are whiter and darks are darker, and the sky is blue or gray. And you get a lot of real stark kind of contrast. And I think it's true of the people. I mean, there's kind of a directness and a clarity to the things they want to say. So it seems to me that it's part and parcel with this area. So I think that if my intention is to say something about that starkness, I know I need some very strong contrast. So in the painting, that's my goal. You know, you could even write that up there. You can title this painting, "The Stark Clarity of Maine," as being my intent. There are lots of symbols of Maine: spruce trees, rocks, ocean, lots of spruce forests. And if you go inland, it's rivers and streams and spruce trees and trees and more spruce trees. When you head up from Waterville up into Canada, you're so excited to see a little piece of water, you pull over because it's like, I guess it still is, the last time I was. Yeah, and lots of trees. A couple years ago, the family went up to Moosehead Lake and we decided to go back to a fishing camp. Well, the last 19 miles of it was on a dirt road. I didn't think we'd ever get there. And when we did get there, the woman was not real happy. If we weren't staying there, she didn't want to see us. Now, someone was asking about these brushes. When they're new, they do, spread out a little bit. These are not intended to be sable brushes that you do fine work with. These are workhorse brushes. You just mash in there and put some paint on, smear it around. Eventually, it'll all wear down and be just a slick. But for a while, it's going to lose its hair. Remember, I told you it's going to lose its hair, and it's going to
I want the money back.
play.
I want the money back.
Because your paint.
Mine's not losing its hair.
Mine's not.
It will, believe me. So, if that's the intent, see, now I'm not stuck with the subject matter. I want stark. I want contrast. So I don't have to go look for some tree or some piece of ocean. My intent is pretty clear. And part of it is that I know I want this kind of contrast in the painting. So I'm going to start with a painting which is going to have stark contrast of intense colors all the way to black, and then work that against things which are more neutral. So that is just some cad yellow light, and here's some lemon yellow, sour lemon yellow. And I won't go too long before I go to the other end of this. This is just pure passionate purple. So I think you can see I've got some pretty strong contrast here already. This is fun painting too, because I'm not doing some specific thing. I mean, this is just landscape, universal, and I don't have to decide where a tree is or what it looks like. I'm even going to do what I said. Excuse me for just 1 minute while I slide in behind here. This is black. And I'll just put that on there. There's no sense putting my palette. It's just going to wind up over here anyway. That's lamp black. There's the Atlantic Ocean. Is Barbara here?
No, draft, no.
Barbara Flurable? We've lost one? I hate that when we lose a student.
She'll be there. She'll be there.
For good. Now, can you see that if my thinking is stark contrast, then I don't have to think about anything else. I don't have to think about rocks, trees. I don't have to think about a specific tree or a specific rock. So it's a lot of freedom that comes with coming at your painting with the biggest possible concept, rather than getting into very specific things. Now, my next concern here is if I'm going to contrast that starkness, I need something which is in contrast to that. And this, right now, that's stark white. So I've got stark color contrast down here against white. And I could stop now and say, I'm done. I've got contrast of value and hue. But I want to make these things seem more contrasting than that by coming back with things which are neutral. So I'm thinking in terms of intensity contrast up here. This is going to be grayer to make that seem brighter. Rather than keep this white so that seems darker, I want this grayer to make these colors seem brighter. That make sense?
Yeah.
You're probably not getting much glare today, are you? People over there? No. Now I'm going to go back here and get some of that peachy keen and some white paint and some coastal fog. All these opaque colors, the beauty of them is not that they make things lighter. They rarely make things lighter unless you really trowel it on. But they neutralize any color. They just knock the intensity out of it. So, Norma, do you have coastal fog?
I do.
Oh, that's good. Do you have brown derby?
Not yet.
So you could actually put blue up there, put orange on top of it to make it gray. You could take any complement, start with yellow, add violet. You could start with red or add green. I mean, you could gray this in lots of different ways. But I'm going to use another kind of contrast, and that is transparent and pure against opaque and gray. All these colors in here, while they do not appear to be transparent because of the amount of paint, are all transparent pigments, except for that Skips green. That is the exception.
Even the black is transparent.
Yep. One nice thing about these opaque colors, you can put down pretty strong colors, come back with something which is opaque, like this is mint julep on top of that yellow ochre, and that's just going to gray that a bit. See, this is pretty subtle stuff, but that's peachy keen on top of that yellow. And now I'm going to go upstairs here and begin with something. This is some new gamboge. There's also something very liberating about knowing that you're going to use those more opaque colors on top of these, because I know that what happens up there is not, it's not going to be the end of the painting. That's just an underpainting, really. I wish some of you could be up here and see your faces while I'm painting. It really is a joy to do it. You turn around and somebody's going. Down here, I've got to be a little more careful. I'm using coastal fog along the coast.
I don't know what you ever did before you got there.
We're counting how many times you mentioned coastal.
That's right.
Well, it's like anything. You get something new, you play with it for a while. And
Remember Geranium Blue Lake?
oh, yeah, Geranium Lake Bluish. That was a Lucas color. You could only get that in Canada.
Yeah, that was fun. This thing never happened before.
But it was such fun for a while. I think we all get trapped in colors on occasion and say,
That's his scroll again, yeah.
now I have a focal point. Light is light, dark is dark. You see it?
Oh, yes. Am I saying too much, Josh? Every now and then I actually start thinking about the pain and I forget I'm supposed to be talking. But what I was doing was as I came down, you don't want to have to cut around all those things. I mean, that's just too... So you paint through it and come back and put this on top. I mean, it's the only way to go. The rest of it will make you crazy. I'm continuing, I mean, I think you can see what I'm thinking about the contrast, the starkness, and I'm really looking for reasons to come up with these stronger kinds of contrast in the painting. Whether they make sense or not. This painting may not be good, but it's going to be stark. Na 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 na. Another nice thing about paint like this, you don't have to wait for anything to dry because there's no water. Christopher Shing said, Skip, the only thing you use water for anymore is to clean your brushes out. Well, that's not my goal. This is, what I'm putting on here is just pure white paint. But you can see that it's not really making that stuff lighter. It is, in fact, just graying it. So that's exactly what I want.
It's still, the pan's still wet enough that it's mixing up.
Yeah, it's picking some of that up. And that's also because of this brush I'm using. This Skipper brush is going to make that, allow that to happen more easily.
I'm wondering how washed this is.
It's not. As a matter of fact, this stuff, anytime you put white in watercolor, it is, in effect, gouache. So, I mean, it's no different whatsoever. All these tubes I have say watercolor. And I guess they are. But they have white in them, so now they become watercolor with white, which is very much like gouache. Almost identical.
Skip's green has white on it.
Skip's green?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, but it's really not a very opaque color. It looks like it should be, but it thins out and pretty quickly. That's not good. Who did that? Someone just yawned. We don't have any yawning during my demonstrations. You're supposed to be just captivated.
These are all shades of grey, did you say? Or?
This?
No, I can
No.
see there are some clean colours, but now you're putting on shades of grey, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm trying to put clean colors on. They're just getting mixed with some of the colors underneath. That was gray I was putting on. But I mean, if the intention of the painting is to make something which is in stark contrast of light, dark, neutral, how am I doing?
Pretty good.
No, I don't think you are. I think it's colour intensity, isn't it? Is what,
That is contrast of intensity.
yeah.
Yeah. Stark contrast of intensity, and down here, I'm simply thinking I'm going to keep these things bright. So all this stuff is rather intense. The blue, the orange, the yellow, the violet, I mean, they're all pretty bright colors. All the rest of this is going to be more neutral in intensity. So the contrast, is not only between light and dark, but between bright and neutral. Yes?
And it's okay to have the wash look of water painting with the strokes that you're using with pure paint.
Well, there may be that after I look at this, that may need a little more body, because if it gets too transparent or it looks too soft, then these two things may not meld very well, so I'll look at that. So let's just stop here for a minute and let me have a chance to see this. Welcome back. So what we're talking about is that this part of the painting having this much contrast, and this being without contrast, this being opaque and gray, this being so strong. I've got the starkness. What's happening though is there's not enough transition, or that this is overpowering that visually. So what I'm going to do now is take some of my something that's not coastal fog, and I'm actually going to bring some of this kind of color down into this painting. And the trick is to keep the contrast, to keep the starkness of this, and yet to lose some of these overpowering edges. So obviously you need to be a little bit careful here how much of this you're losing. How much you're keeping, and then you're going to go up here and identify some of this as having more contrast. Feels right now?
Starting to, I don't like the line under the paint.
Well, just tell me what you don't like, and that'll be the thing. I had a friend one time who had a gallery, and I questioned his integrity the day he was there, and this patron came in and said, I really like this painting, but I wish there was a figure on that pier. He said, where do you want it? How many do you want?
You gotta do what your whole thing is.
Gotta be cat.
And he didn't have any problem with that. He put it in. Working now, huh?
Not yet.
Where's my poop?
Shopping.
Huh?
Shopping.
For what? Food?
No.
As long as they can't get in Hawaii.
Yeah.
A moo-moo?
No.
I'm going to tell her you said that.
The kids used to come and stay with me, and they were so excited about wearing boots and scarves.
You're over that now?
This episode is one of the wanted to wear plaid. They would shout for the job and nothing to wear at home. They'd walk around the football. And the mafia one would come home with his mom. Turn up your heat tonight. And I'd come home, she'd have our paper.
Jesus.
Yes.
Tell us about your first 3 marriages. I know, I'd like to hear that. see it now. Katie's a nice student. Will not pay attention to the teacher. I will stop here for a minute and see what I'm going to do, or I'm going to just stop. I'm not going to see what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this thing rest for now. It may be that I can improve on it, but it's tape removing time. I also love this because there's no question that you're finished painting. You want to know how to know when you're finished painting? When you take the tape off, you're finished. You can always put it back, but don't tell anyone about that part. What can you do, Millie?
Take the scissors and start cutting like parts of it.
There's always that. So, golden reed, stark? It feels stark to you? Could it be more starker? Probably. But I mean, you know, you're not going to, just because you have an idea doesn't mean every paint is going to be terrific. But it's for damn sure that if you don't have an idea, you can't even evaluate whether it is terrific. You just wind up with something. I mean, it is the story of the people who say, I'm going to Philadelphia, and they wind up in Cleveland, and instead of admitting that they didn't know where they were going to begin with, they say, I like Cleveland. Cleveland's not too bad, you know. I was going to write a murder mystery, and somewhere along the line it turned into a documentary and wound up as a love story. Well, I mean, it'd be nice if your intentions are to write a love story, to have it come out with love, with deep love.